The acrid smell of ozone and recycled air hung thick in the lower levels of Nexus Station, where legitimate merchants feared to tread and questionable deals were struck in shadowed alcoves. Dex Malone adjusted the strap of his worn leather jacket, his calloused fingers brushing against the plasma pistol concealed beneath. The stolen Helix 7 navigation core in his cargo pack represented 3 months of dangerous work, and he wasn't about to let some 2-bit alien fence cheat him out of what it was worth. Grothin's establishment occupied a cramped corner of the black market district, its flickering holographic sign advertising rare acquisitions and discreet transactions. The hulking Garathian merchant himself stood nearly 8 feet tall, his gray-green hide scarred from countless deals gone wrong. 4 arms gestured animatedly as he examined the navigation core under a quantum scanner, his compound eyes reflecting the device's blue glow. 40,000 credits, Dex said, his voice carrying the hard edge of someone who'd learned to negotiate with a gun on his hip. That core came from a military transport. You know what those go for on the Rim worlds. Grothin's mandibles clicked, in what passed for amusement among his species. Perhaps human, but military cores come with military attention. 25,000, final offer. Like hell. Dex's hand drifted toward his weapon. I've got 3 other buyers lined up. Don't waste my time. The alien's 4 arms spread in a gesture of mock surrender. Peace, friend Malone. Perhaps we can ... supplement the arrangement. One of his lower hands pressed a control panel, and a door slid open with a hydraulic whisper. What stepped through made Dex's breath catch despite years of seeing the galaxy's strangest sights. The woman was humanoid but distinctly alien, her skin a warm golden hue that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Auburn hair cascaded over her shoulders in waves, framing a face that was undeniably beautiful. It carried an otherworldly quality. Her eyes were the most striking feature, deep violet, with flecks of silver that caught the light like stars. She wore a simple gray tunic and pants, but even in the plain clothing, her movements held an unconscious grace that spoke of nobility. Valdorian stock, Grothin said with obvious pride, captured during the border raids last season. Worth 30,000 credits on her own, but for a valued customer. He paused dramatically. 25,000 credits plus the female. Consider it a bonus for your patience. Dex felt his jaw tighten. I don't deal in people, Grothin. You know that. Ah, but she is more than people, the merchant insisted. Valdorians are prized throughout the sector. Intelligent, adaptable, and... His compound eyes gleamed, remarkably skilled in the arts of pleasure. Think of it as acquiring a very valuable companion. The woman's violet eyes met Dex's across. The cramped space. There was no fear there, no pleading, just a calculating intelligence that made him pause. Most slaves he'd encountered showed terror or broken resignation. This one studied him, like she was making her own evaluation. She speaks standard? Dex asked, though he wasn't sure why. Fluently, Grothin confirmed, among 7 other languages. Tell him your name, female. Zara, she said, her voice carrying a musical quality, with just a hint of accent. And I would very much like to leave this place. Something in her tone suggested layers beneath the simple words. Dex ran a hand through his dark hair, already, knowing he was about to make a decision he'd regret. The navigation core alone wasn't enough to fund his ship's repairs, and he needed to get off station before the military traced the theft back to him. 30,000 credits total, he said finally. And I want documentation that she's a free person the moment the transfer completes. Grothin's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin. Of course. Though I doubt you'll want to. Release such a prize once you've sampled her qualities. Just get the paperwork, Dex growled. As the merchant shuffled away to prepare the documents, Dex approached Zara cautiously. Up close, He could see the subtle details that marked her as alien. The way her skin seemed to hold light, the slightly pointed ears hidden beneath her hair, the graceful length of her fingers. "Listen," he said quietly, "I'm not buying you. The moment we're off this station, you're free to go wherever you want. I'll even give you enough credits for passage to any system you choose." A small smile curved her lips. "That's very generous. May I ask why?" "Because slavery's wrong," he said simply. "No one should own another person." An interesting philosophy for a smuggler and thief. Dex raised an eyebrow. "How do your reputation precedes you, Dex Malone. The man who's never killed, unnecessarily, who's helped more than one refugee reach safety without payment." Her violet eyes seemed to look right through him. "I was hoping you'd be the one to find me." Before he could process that statement, Grothin returned with a data pad covered in official-looking holographic seals. The transaction completed with biometric scans and credit transfers, and within minutes, Dex found himself walking through the station corridors with his unexpected companion. "Your ship?" Zara asked as they approached the docking bays. "The Wanderer's Dream, modified courier vessel." He paused at the airlock, studying her again. "You said you were hoping I'd find you. What did you mean by that?" Instead of answering directly, she reached out and touched the ship's hull with obvious appreciation. Avalon Industries, Series 3. Fast, reliable, and with enough cargo space for discrete operations. You've modified the engine housing for extra speed. You know ships? Among other things. That mysterious smile again. "May we board?" "I have a feeling our time on this station is about to become complicated." As if summoned by her words, Dex's communicator chirped with an incoming priority message. The display showed a military frequency. Someone had traced the stolen navigation core faster than expected. "Time to go," he muttered, palming the airlock controls. As they entered the ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn toward the extremely complicated. The woman beside him moved through his ship like she belonged there, and the way she'd known his reputation, his ship's. "Specifications?" "Zara," he called as she settled into the co-pilot's seat without invitation. "I get the feeling you're not exactly what you seem." She looked back at him with those striking violet eyes, and her smile held secrets that would have made a dozen governments nervous. "None of us are, Dex, but I promise you won't be disappointed in the truth." As the Wanderer's Dream cleared Nexus Station's docking bay and jumped to hyperspace, Dex Malone had no idea that he'd just become entangled with the most wanted woman in 3-star systems, and that his simple smuggling life was about to become anything but simple. The hyperspace tunnel stretched endlessly around the Wanderer's Dream, stars compressed into brilliant streaks of light that painted the cockpit in ethereal blues and whites. Dex had set course for the Kepler Drift, a notorious smuggler's haven, 3 junks away, but his attention kept wandering from the navigation displays to his enigmatic passenger. Zara had made herself at home with unsettling ease, moving through his ship like she'd lived there for years. She'd found his emergency medical supplies and tended to minor cuts on her wrists that he hadn't noticed. Before restraint marks, he realized with a surge of anger. The way she handled the medical scanner spoke of extensive training, not the fumbling of someone unfamiliar with technology. "Tell me about Valdoria," he said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "I've heard stories, but ... most of them are probably wrong." Zara looked up from the star charts. She'd been studying with obvious familiarity. "My people value privacy. We prefer the galaxy think of us as mysterious rather than mundane." "Mundane?" Dex laughed, gesturing at her golden skin that seemed to hold its own inner light. "Nothing about you seems mundane." A shadow crossed her features. "You might be surprised. We're not so different from humans. We love, we grieve, we make mistakes that echo through generations." Before he could ask what she meant, A proximity alarm chimed. Dex's blood chilled as he saw the scanner display. A ship had dropped out of hyperspace behind them, matching their course with military precision. "We've got company," he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. "Big ship, fast. Someone really wants that navigation core back." Zara leaned over his shoulder to study the display, her proximity sending an unexpected shiver through him. Her scent was like exotic flowers and ozone, distinctly alien yet intoxicating. "That's not a military vessel," she said with certainty. "The energy signature is wrong. It's a hunter ship." "Hunter ship?" Dex increased power to the engines, but their pursuer was gaining. "How do you?" "Because they're hunting me, not your stolen goods." The simple statement hit him like a plasma bolt. Dex spun in his chair to face her, and for the first time since. Leaving Nexus Station, he saw genuine fear in those violet eyes. "Who are you?" he demanded. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of secrets too long held. "My name is Zara Nethys. I am the Crown Princess of Valdoria, sole heir to the Celestial Throne, and the most wanted fugitive in 3-star systems." The ship shuddered as their pursuer launched a warning shot across their bow. Dex's mind reeled as he processed her revelation, while simultaneously plotting an escape route through the asteroid field ahead. "A princess," he said, weaving between massive space rocks that could crush his ship like an insect. "I rescued a goddamn princess from a black market slave dealer." "Technically, you bought me," Zara corrected with a wry smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Though rescued has a much nicer ring to it." Another energy blast lit up the void, this one closer. Their pursuer was skilled, staying with them despite Dex's erratic piloting through the asteroid field. The ship's hull groaned as he pushed the engines beyond their recommended limits. "Why?" he asked through gritted teeth, pulling the ship into a sharp dive beneath a tumbling asteroid the size of a moon. Why would a princess arrange to be sold as a slave? Because it was the only way off Valdoria without triggering a diplomatic incident. Zara moved to the co-pilot's seat, her hands dancing over the secondary controls with practiced ease. "I'm supposed to marry Prince Demon Korth of the Hegemony in 6 days. The Union would secure a military alliance that would drag both our peoples into a war they don't want, so you ran away from home." Despite their desperate situation, Dex felt a smile tug at his lips. Most teenage rebellion doesn't involve interstellar incident. "I'm hardly a teenager," Zara said with dignity, and spoiled it by sticking her tongue out at him. A gesture was so unexpectedly human, so playful, that Dex felt something warm unfurl in his chest. The hunter ship fired again, and this time the blast clipped their port engine. Warning lights bathed the cockpit in angry red as power fluctuated. Throughout the ship, "Can you reach that repair panel?" Dex asked, fighting to keep them stable as they wove through the asteroid field's densest section. "Red handle. Pull it down and hold it." Zara stretched across the narrow cockpit space, her body pressed against his as she reached for the emergency controls. The contact sent electricity through every nerve ending, and for a moment, Dex forgot about their pursuers entirely. She was warm and solid against him, her hair tickling his cheek, and the scent of her filled his senses. "Got it," she breathed, her face inches from his. Their eyes met, and the moment stretched between them like a taut wire. Then another blast rocked the ship, breaking the spell. "There," Dex said, pointing to a narrow canyon between 2 massive asteroids. "If I can thread us through there, we might lose them." "That gap is barely wider than our ship," Zara observed. "One wrong move, ... and I won't make a wrong move." He looked at her, surprised by his own certainty. "I didn't rescue a princess just to get us both killed in an asteroid field." The canyon was a nightmare of jutting rock and shifting debris. But Dex had been threading impossible spaces since he was old enough to hold a flight stick. Behind them, their pursuer hesitated at the canyon mouth, a larger ship, less maneuverable, unwilling to follow where the wanderer's dream dared to go. They emerged from the canyon into open space, their pursuer lost in the maze of stone behind them. Dex set course for a nearby moon where they could hide and make repairs, his hands shaking slightly with adrenaline. "Who was that?" he asked as they settled into the moon's shadow. "Captain Voss," Zara said with distaste. "One of my father's favorite bounty hunters. Persistent, ruthless, and very, very expensive." "Your father hired a bounty hunter to bring you home?" "My father hired 6 bounty hunters." She moved to the small galley, pulling out ingredients for tea with the ease of someone who'd spent time in ship's kitchens. "Voss is just the most skilled. The others are probably waiting at every major spaceport between here and Valdoria." Dex accepted the steaming cup she offered, inhaling the exotic aroma. "So what's the plan, Your Highness?" "Just Zara," she said softly. "And I honestly don't. No, I thought I'd have more time before they found my trail." "Well, running away to avoid an arranged marriage is one thing. But you said this alliance would start a war. What did you mean?" Zara settled beside him on the ship's small couch, close enough that their knees touched. The casual contact sent warmth spiraling through him, and he wondered if she felt it too. "The hegemony wants access to Valdorian quantum technology," she explained. "Our engines, our weapons, our medical advances. Prince Demon is ... unstable. Violent. If I marry him, he gains legitimate claim to our technological secrets. Within a generation, he could conquer half the galaxy. And if you don't marry him? The hegemony threatens war anyway." She laughed bitterly. "It's a perfect trap. Marry the monster and enable his conquest, or refuse and watch my people die in a war they can't win." Dex studied her profile in the dim cabin lighting. Even discussing such terrible choices, she was beautiful, but it was the strength in her voice, the steel beneath the silk, that truly captivated him. "There has to be another way," he said. "My mother thinks so. She's the one who helped me escape, though she can't say so publicly." Zara turned to face him fully. "There's an old Valdorian law, almost forgotten. If I can find someone willing to undergo the trials of worth, someone who could prove themselves capable of protecting our people, you could marry them instead." Dex finished, in theory. Her smile was sad. "But the trials are designed to be impossible. No outsider has ever completed them." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly past the viewport. Dex found himself studying the elegant line of her neck, the way starlight caught in her auburn hair. When had he started thinking of her as beautiful rather than alien? When had her presence begun to feel like the missing piece of something he hadn't known was broken? "What about you?" Zara asked suddenly. What made Dex Malone become a smuggler with a conscience? "Long story," he said. "We have time." So he told her about growing up on a corporate mining world, about watching his parents die from lung poisoning, while the company covered up the toxic working conditions, about taking his first illegal job to pay for medicine that came too late. He'd expected judgment or pity, but Zara listened with the intensity of someone who understood that everyone's choices were shaped by their scars. "You became a criminal to help people," she said when he finished. "I ran away from responsibility to avoid helping them. Which of us is the real princess? You're helping your people by refusing to enable a tyrant," Dex pointed out. "That takes more courage than most people have, does it? Or am I just a coward who's afraid to sacrifice her own happiness for the greater good?" Before he could answer, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, like she was asking a question. Dex answered by pulling her closer, deepening the kiss until the rest of the galaxy faded away. She tasted like starlight and possibilities, like everything he'd never dared to want. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zara rested her forehead against his. "I should warn you," she whispered. "Getting involved with me is likely to get you killed." "Wouldn't be the first time I've made a bad decision," Bex replied, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "Besides, someone has to keep you out of trouble, Your Highness." "Just Zara," she corrected again, but she was smiling. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the hopes and fears of two people who had found something precious in the vast darkness. But in the depths of space, Captain Voss was already tracking their quantum signature, and the hunt was far from over. The mining colony of Tertius 7 clung to the surface of a dead world like a metallic parasite, its domed structures connected by pressurized tubes that snaked across the barren landscape. It was exactly the kind of place where questions weren't asked and credits talked louder than laws, perfect for two fugitives who needed to disappear. Bex guided the wanderer's dream through the colony's automated defense grid, his fake transponder codes holding up under the cursory security scan. Beside him, Zara had traded her simple tunic for one of his spare flight suits, the practical clothing doing nothing to diminish her otherworldly beauty. If anything, seeing her in his clothes stirred something possessive in his chest that he tried to ignore. "Your friend lives here?" she asked, studying the colony's ramshackle appearance through the viewport. "Nico's not exactly a friend," Bex admitted as they settled onto a landing pad surrounded by rust-stained cargo haulers and atmospheric processors. "More like someone who owes me a favor." The colony's artificial atmosphere was thin and tasted of recycled metal, but it was breathable. They made their way through crowded corridors filled with off-shift miners and the kind of traders who dealt in materials that didn't officially exist. Zara stayed close to his side, her violet eyes taking in everything while her hand rested on the plasma pistol he'd given her. Nico. Santori's bar occupied a converted storage bay in the colony's lower levels, its dim lighting and smoky atmosphere perfect for the kind of conversations that needed privacy. The man himself stood behind the bar, his cybernetic arm polishing glasses with mechanical precision, while his organic eye tracked every patron in the room. When he saw Dex, his weathered face split into a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Dex Malone," he called out in accented standard. "I heard you were dead. Disappointed?" Dex settled onto a bar stool, gesturing for Zara to take the one beside him. Several miners turned to stare at her, their appreciative looks making his jaw tighten protectively. Relieved, actually. Dead partners don't collect on old debts. Nico's gaze shifted to Zara, curiosity replacing his casual humor. "And who might this lovely creature be?" "Someone who needs to disappear for a while," Dex said carefully. "We could use a quiet place to lie low. Disappearing costs extra these days." Nico poured 3 glasses of something that glowed faintly blue. "Word is, there's serious money being offered for information about a certain Valdorian woman. Royal blood, if the rumors are true." Zara's hand moved toward her weapon, but Dex caught her wrist gently. "How much money?" "Enough to buy this entire colony twice over." Nico's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Zara's face. "Enough to make even old friends consider their options." The bar had gone quiet around them, and Dex realized they'd walked into a trap. Several of the miners were positioning themselves between the fugitives and the exit, their movements too coordinated to be coincidental. His hand found his plasma pistol as he calculated their chances of fighting their way out. "Nico," he said, quietly, "don't do this." "Do what?" His former partner's smile widened. "I'm just making conversation with old friends. Though I should mention, Captain Voss arrived an hour ago. He's very eager to meet your companion." The back door burst open, and armored figures poured into the bar. Dex recognized the tactical gear immediately. Bounty hunter equipment, military grade. He shoved Zara behind the bar as plasma fire erupted around them, the air filling with the acrid smell of ozone and burning plastic. This way. Zara grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a maintenance hatch she'd somehow spotted in the chaos. They squeezed through the narrow opening as energy bolts sizzled past their heads, emerging into a service tunnel that ran beneath the colony's main structure. "How did you know that was there?" Dex asked as they ran through the cramped passage, emergency lighting casting their shadows in harsh red angles. "Prince's training includes escape and evasion," she panted, among other useful skills. They emerged into the colony's main power plant, massive fusion reactors humming with barely contained energy. The heat was oppressive, but it would mask their thermal signatures from the hunter scanners. They took shelter behind a reactor housing, both breathing hard from their desperate flight. "Voss found us too quickly," Zara said, checking her weapons. "Charge level with professional efficiency. He must have tracked our quantum signature. Or Nico sold us out the moment we walked in." Dex felt the bitter taste of betrayal in his mouth. "I should have known better than to trust him." "People make choices based on fear," Zara said gently. "Your friend probably has family to protect." Even now, facing capture or worse, she was making excuses for the man who'd betrayed them. It was so fundamentally decent, so different from the Sim. Cynical pragmatism Dex had learned to expect from the galaxy, that he felt something shift in his chest. "We need to get back to the ship," he said. "They'll have it surrounded by now." Zara peered around the reactor housing, spotting the tactical lights of bounty hunters searching the power plant's upper levels. "We need another way off this rock. There might be one." Dex remembered the cargo schedules he'd glimpsed while docking. Ore hauler launching in 2 hours. "If we can get aboard, ... A new voice echoed through the power plant, amplified by military-grade speakers. "Princess Zara Nethys. I am Captain Voss of the independent vessel Nemesis. You are wanted for questioning by the Valdorian Royal Court. Surrender now, and your companion will be spared." Zara's face went pale at the sound of his voice. "He won't spare you," she whispered. "Voss doesn't leave witnesses." "Then we don't get caught." They made their way deeper into the power plant, using the maze of pipes and conduits for cover. The ore hauler sat on a pad at the facility's edge, its cargo holds being loaded by automated systems. Getting aboard would require perfect timing and a lot of luck. "There," Dex pointed to an access ladder that led to the hauler's maintenance bay. "When the loading cycle reaches 60%, we'll have maybe 30 seconds while the cargo bay is sealed, but the external sensors are cycling." "That's not much time," Zara observed. "No, it's not." He turned to face her fully, memorizing the way starlight from the facility's windows caught in her auburn hair. "Zara, if something goes wrong..." She silenced him with a kiss, fierce and desperate and full of all the things they hadn't had time to say. When they broke apart, her violet eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Nothing's going wrong," she said firmly. "We're getting out of here, both of us." The loading cycle reached optimal point, and they ran for the hauler like their lives depended on it, which, Dex reflected, they probably did. They made it aboard with seconds to spare, hiding in the cargo bay among containers of refined metals and rare earth elements. As the hauler lifted off from Tertius 7, Dex watched through a small porthole as the mining colony fell away beneath them. Somewhere down there, Captain Voss was probably furious at losing his prize. The thought gave him a moment of savage satisfaction before the reality of their situation set in. "Where do we go now?" Zara asked, settling beside him among the cargo containers. The hauler's artificial gravity was lighter than the colony's, making her movements seem even more graceful than usual. "I don't know," he admitted. "Voss will have our ship by now, along with all my contacts and safe houses." And if Nico sold us out, others might too. She nodded grimly. The bounty on my head is too high to ignore. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the hauler's engines carry them away from immediate danger. Dex found himself studying Zara's profile, the elegant line of her jaw, the way she worried her lower lip when she was thinking. 3 days ago, he'd been a simple smuggler with simple problems. Now he was harboring a fugitive princess, marked for death by bounty hunters, and falling in love with someone whose world was literally light years beyond his reach. Dex, she said suddenly, those trials I mentioned. The trials of worth. What about them? If someone were to complete them successfully, they wouldn't just earn the right to marry into the royal family. Her violet eyes met his with an intensity that made his breath catch. They would become a legitimate claimant to joint rule of Valdoria. Equal partners, not just a consort. The implication hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Dex felt his heart racing as he processed what she was suggesting. Zara, he said carefully, are you asking me to— I'm asking you to consider it, she interrupted. The trials are dangerous, probably fatal, but if you succeeded, we could rule together, he finished. Stop the war, refuse the alliance. With the hegemony, yes. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. But I won't lie to you about the risks. The last person to attempt the trials died in the first challenge. That was over 200 years ago. Dex looked down at their joined hands, her golden skin contrasting with his darker complexion. A week ago, the idea would have been absurd. A smuggler, challenging for the right to rule an entire star system? But something had changed in him during these past days with Zara. She made him want to be more than he was, to reach for something beyond mere survival. Tell me about these trials, he said. The smile that lit up her face was brighter than any star he'd ever seen. As the ore hauler carried them toward an uncertain future, Zara began to explain the ancient traditions that might be their only hope. Behind them, Captain Voss was already plotting their next meeting. And somewhere in the depths of space, forces were moving that would test not just their love, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for each other. In the cargo hold of a rust bucket ore hauler, surrounded by refined metals and the smell of recycled air, a princess and a smuggler began planning to change the fate of worlds.